Hello, everyone, and a happy new year to you all. Welcome to the Differential Podcast with your hosts, me, Mr. AB, along with my good friend, Doc JP. Doc, what's the lowdown?
Hey, happy New Year to you and to our audience. 2022, looking forward to it. So what are we talking about today, AB?
Mate, we are going to do a dive into the recently released Amazon Wheel of Time series, Season 1.
Yeah. So we're continuing on our theme of fantasy shows or reviewing fantasy shows. We previously reviewed The Witcher. So, looking forward to talking to you about Wheel of Time.
Yeah. So JP, you're big into RPGs and a lot of novels and stuff, mate. Tell us about your. Do you have any? Did you have any prior contact to Wheel of Time before the series came out, or?
Just to clarify, that's role-playing game, guys,
Yeah,
not the other
yeah.
thing. Yeah, not too familiar with that. No. This is I'm coming to Wheel of Time
Right.
from a total novice slash noob perspective. And what about you?
Um, so I've actually managed to read back in the day up to about like book 5 or something, and I went the long route with this. So after the Hobbit, oh no, the Hobbit, sorry, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I actually started looking for something similar, and I found this, and I actually really like the first book, The Eye of the World. So I was kind of hooked into it. The characters kind of seemed familiar, and I read this like 10, 15 years ago, so it's been a while. And I just heard during 2020 that they were working on a TV show based off of this. So I was kind of intrigued to see. I mean, Rosamund Pike was the first name associated with it. We know she's a very capable actress, pretty well known as well. So I thought, might be some good things coming around. Amazon can make a couple of good series. I think we've watched a couple of good ones on Amazon. So I
Well,
thought I'd give it a,
they don't really make them, right? They just
well, they
produce
publish
them.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like
And
they have a couple of good series on Amazon is what I was trying to
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
What I was gonna ask is how many books
Yeah.
are there?
Mate, I think there's like 13 books or something.
Wow, so you're like you have a lot more to go. Are you planning to finish them?
I don't know. I always start reading from the beginning because there's just such a it's a very expansive universe, and there's a lot of stuff going on in and around the main characters, just as you would have in normally any fantasy books. But I don't know. Let me just put it this way. So in terms of the show hasn't done enough for me to go back to the books. Let me just put it like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, like overall. Okay, before we get into that, I just want to say I think we forgot to mention this. There's going to be
Yeah,
spoilers for
spoilers
both
up
the
ahead.
books, because you're going to talk a bit about how the show compares to the books, and then
Yeah.
of course for the show itself. But yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me more about. So you already kind of let the cat out of the bag. You didn't really like it. Am I right to say that? And why didn't you like it? Just an overall.
Um. So okay. So let me put it this way. I was I okay. I didn't mind watching it because I had read the first book multiple times. It's probably the strongest book in the series that I felt. Um. Well, that's what I felt when I was reading it. Um. What did I not like about the series in general? It just looks very low budget and like hastily put together. So the characters kind of seem a little bit wafer thin at the moment. They've got a good young cast, and I can see with the right hand behind the camera, they could have done good job a good job with it. But yeah, just I see this trend with fantasy movies and stuff recently. Not I mean, and it's not just really not just limited to fantasy movies, but a lot of movies in general, they try to get there too quickly. Like they try to get big too fast, where it's like, oh, immediately we're trying to challenge the Lord of the Rings, or we're trying to challenge the Game of Thrones, or we're trying to challenge the Marvel franchise. You have this stuff, and it doesn't earn it for my money. A lot of, like, okay, obviously, when I said trying to compare yourselves to Marvel, I'm referring to the DC universe, but they're like the most blatant example of this, because I find like sometimes they haven't established their characters, and they're trying to do the whole Avenger style multiverse thing, and it doesn't work because they haven't released movies for everybody else. It's just like two, three main characters who have movies. So that's just my point for all the Marvel fans out there, and to the DC fans. It is what is it. It is what it is, guys. I'm sorry. Hashtag not sorry. But
Are there DC fans?
come on, you love Batman,
I
JP. Don't
mean,
even
no, I like the Nolan Batman. The rest is just garbage.
the Nolan verse is its own separate thing.
Yeah, I don't really consider that part of the DC verse. Right?
Oh
I
man.
see that as kind of a standalone thing. The Nolan Batman. Anyway,
Yep.
we could talk about that forever.
Yep. So yeah, like I felt like it's a bit hastily put together, and they kind of focused on the wrong things, and they took some liberties, which I felt like, I think it would have been better if you concentrated on the other thing to kind of build up the series. So yeah, I mean, I think it just looks hasty, the show, to me. Like they've got a good bunch of characters, but I think they just took wrong decisions along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. For coming from it from like a person who hasn't read the books, it wasn't a good first impression for me, and I just felt like it was just too familiar or similar to Lord of the Rings, which apparently is also happens in the books. There's one too many things that are very much Lord of the Rings esque, and I didn't really like that. It almost seems like a ripoff.
Yeah.
So definitely didn't like that. So, but I guess that's a critique of both the show and the books. The other thing, and yeah, the books also. I mean, the show seems very much hastily put together. In some cases, like the CGI and the editing is well done. In other cases, it's not. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes there's good acting. Sometimes it's pretty mediocre. So overall, it was very much mixed for me. It was watchable enough such that I got through the whole 8 episodes. But like, there's other shows that we watch where like we can't even get past the first 2 episodes. So at least that's, I guess, kind of a win. But
yeah.
And then also, it came out at a bad time because The Witcher has come out around the same time, and they're very similar.
Yeah.
And we're comparing a lot of people who like fantasy are comparing the two. And to me, The Witcher has definitely done a much better job in almost every aspect.
I think even Witcher season 1 beats this show handily.
Yeah, even Witcher season 1 was much better. I came out thinking Witcher season 1 was kind of okay.
Yeah.
Season 2 has surpassed it leaps and bounds, but this show is definitely worse than Witcher season 1 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, mate. Like, coming as someone from who's read the books already, I kind of just felt a little bit let down, because one of my favorite things about the whole first book, Eye of the World, is this there's this urgent traveling that they have to do. So if you've watched the show or read the books, you understand that there are these 4 youngsters who are supposed to be focal points in the fabric of time, or the passage of time. They're called Tervuren in the books. Basically, events seem to unfold around them that affect the course of time. And, they're being tracked by the Dark Lord, who's stirring in his prison, that he was banished to at the end of life. So the whole theme of the show is very, I think it has a lot to do with like reincarnation and that sort of mythology, where every cycle you have a reincarnation of good and evil, blah blah blah. And so the Dark Lord is stirring again, or the Dark One is stirring again, and we've got new heroes rising and stuff. So the the Dark One is trying to get he's trying to snuff out the four Tervuren in the books, but in the show, interestingly enough, in the first episode, they refer to four Tervuren, but I think by one of the latter episodes, somewhere in the middle, they refer to them as five, which kind of I think wasn't the plan originally, but they kind of improvised on the go, and you'll hear us talk about this later. That it was a kind of a, I don't know, a questionable choice, because the fifth Tervuren was just like, what are you doing? You know, I kind of had me shaking my head a little bit. So yeah.
So is that a mistake by the showrunners here to go from 4 to 5, or was this like some sort of intended transition?
Oh no, mate. I honestly couldn't tell you what they're thinking, because actually, was it even four in the books? Because I'm trying to I think I'm second guessing myself. Maybe it was three Tervuren and not four in the books. I have not read the books in a very long time. But yeah, like the number of the focal characters differs in the shows, and they change it again a second time during the running of the show, which is never a good sign. That means you didn't have it right the first time, and you kind of like changing the script as you go. But either ways, yeah, yeah, it's definitely not. It's not well planned out at times. It seems as well, like just a feeling I got from it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Let's. What's the next stage? What can we talk about here?
Well,
do you
we
want
can
to
talk about the casting.
Yeah, let's talk about the casting. Yeah, I think let me start off without not knowing much about the book, so I'm coming at it from a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
I thought Rosamund Pike did a good job as Moraine, as the Aes Sedai, main Aes Sedai character. I think her acting was good. I didn't really have many issues there.
Mm-hmm.
The young kids, the five, what is it called, Tervuren?
Yeah, the Tervuren.
Right. I think overall they were okay. They're a decent job. Here and there, I had quibbles. Like for example, Perrin, his character was seemed very one-dimensional. He kind of always seemed to be, angry or down or mopey.
Yeah.
Maybe that was because his wife died.
Well, there we go. Like that's one of the first points of conflict was Perrin, Matt, Rand, and Nynaeve were all younger. They were like teenagers in the book, and not Nynaeve, sorry, Egwene. They were all teenagers in the book, and they were friends. But Nynaeve was older. She was sort of like in a little bit of a leadership capacity, let's call it that, for the village. She's one of the wisdoms, or the wisdom of the village now. So she's always a bit older than these kids. And my first point of contention, besides Lan and his appearance, which I'll come to later, was the fact that Perrin was never married in the books. He was just a blacksmith's apprentice. So showing his wife and the fact that she was maybe pregnant, I'm not sure if that was like I thought I picked up something about pregnancy in the first episode. I don't know if you got
maybe.
that too.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was kind of implied.
Yeah, so that made no sense, because Perrin's conflict, he's always been sort of like a careful, in the books he's very mopey and careful and brooding as well. So but
I guess if I were to put myself in the showrunner's mind here or whatever, I guess they were looking to add a bit more depth to the character, or get some sort of emotional reaction from the audience. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, but like killing off a character we know nothing about, that's never been mentioned in the books, after like 5 minutes of screen time, is not the way to write yourself into depth.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear
maybe
that.
give it like 4 episodes or 5 episodes for us to develop something with the character, and then snuff them out. Like, dude, Game of Thrones snuffed out its 2 like premier season antagonist in one episode
Protagonist.
or two protagonists. Yeah,
Yeah.
in like 1 or 2 episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that is like,
This-
all-time
That's
great
next
stuff.
level.
Yeah. But
So
I guess
we were
maybe the
attached to them,
showrunners,
right?
yeah, maybe the showrunners were thinking we got to kill somebody here, and then this big
Jesus.
like fight, and they didn't really want to take out any of their main characters in the first episode.
Yeah,
I don't
but I
know.
mean, mate, there's characters around that could have taken off. Like there's the innkeepers, the blacksmiths. They could have killed off the blacksmith character if had they introduced one as Perrin's master. I think I forget master something, master the Perrin's blacksmith boss in the books was Master Luhan or something like that. And he was like almost like a surrogate father figure to Perrin in a way. Could have killed him off to add a little bit of emotional depth, or I don't know. But that kind of like jarred me a little bit because I was like, come on, that's just a cheap way of trying to get an emotional reaction, but it achieves the opposite for me because like I don't know who Perrin's wife is. I know nothing about her save that she works hard and she might be pregnant. Like, what am I supposed to care about this?
She's a
Doesn't
human
do it for
being,
me.
man. She's a human
Oh,
being.
fucking, come on. Yeah, so that kind of fell flat. And so one of the things that kind of immediately stood out to me at the beginning of this show. So I don't think the actor Daniel Henney, who plays Lan, is a bad actor or he's miscast, but his appearance doesn't conform to the Lan mentioned in the books. So I'm all for taking artistic licenses and stuff, but like, do you have to like make him look so ethnically samurai? Do you know what I mean?
I'm
Like
gonna just
Lan,
say it. I'm gonna just say it. Why the fuck does he look like a samurai? It just doesn't.
yeah,
It just doesn't. It doesn't fit. Like I think I asked you this after we watched the
yeah,
first episode. I'm like, what the fuck is this samurai guy doing in the middle of this fantasy show
yeah. It's
that doesn't seem like it's from feudal Japan?
exactly. Well, and the thing is, like, I think they took the books a little bit too literally at times in the wrong places because, like, they have very skilled blades, and I think the author Robert Jordan was trying to talk about the swords in this book as sort of like a a, not like an extension of the samurai swords that you have in Japan, which are known for their craftsmanship and their like their ability in combat and stuff. So he was trying to describe a similar sword, but like the showrunners just literally took that to mean a samurai because he does describe it very closely, and yes, it could sound like a samurai, but I'm like, come on, man, use a bit of imagination. Like, how does something from like something that's in the real world historically make sense in this sort of like fantasy
He he
world? You know what I
just
mean?
he just seems like he's time traveling. He just
Basically,
showed
because
out of nowhere.
he's got the top knot. His armor is very samurai, and I'm just like, read the books. Lan is a you know like for like copy of the Aragorn character in Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, Lan in the books is not shown to be. He doesn't have a top knot. He has a braid on his forehead that holds his hair back, and it's disheveled a little bit. Like he's stone faced and stuff. And I guess like I could see Daniel Henney's character of Lan interpreted differently, but the whole samurai thing, you're absolutely right. Like it threw me for a loop, and I was actually relieved when you asked me this because I was like, oh, okay, so it's not just me who thinks this looks out of place.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong. I love samurai. I'd love to see a show about samurai, etc. Right?
Mm,
That's I'm very interested in that
yeah,
aspect of history,
so
but like it
interested
doesn't
that
fit
some
here.
so interested that somebody's actually currently working his way through Sekiro Shadows Die Twice on the console.
Yeah, damn
just
straight.
just to let you guys know.
It's a
But
tough
yeah,
game.
mate, like I'd love to see. I love all that any movie about like feudal Japan. I even watched like that really hard to watch movie with Liam Neeson and Andrew Garfield about I think it was the Jesuit priest or something in feudal Japan. Oh,
Yeah, that's a tough watch.
that's a really tough watch, mate. Like But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that we're not exposed to a lot. Like, The Last Samurai was a great movie. I thought the Liam Neeson and Andrew Garfield movie about the Jesuit priest was pretty good too. Just a different take, just like a non-typical way of like showing, or just it's not something we're used to seeing very often, you know, unless you're like exclusively watching historical Japanese movies. So it's good to see, and you're absolutely right. Like he looks totally samurai typecast, and it's to his
Yeah.
detriment because like he's already of Asian origin, even though you might not be able to tell by his name. But like, you know, you're
I mean,
trying to play
the actor is right,
the
not
actor
the
is, that's right.
character
That's
necessarily.
right.
Um,
No, the actor is of Asian, I think Korean descent,
yeah,
but he's American. But at the same time, I think sometimes Hollywood, not sometimes, but often Hollywood gets this wrong where they try to be so diverse and try to show you, oh my God, it's not just for white actors, everybody's welcome. They go so far that they just they just end up like shooting themselves in the foot a little bit, where like you don't want to stereotype an actor or an actress of certain descent, but the needles line up at exactly the wrong place, and then you suddenly here you have like a typecast job because you have an actor of Asian descent cast as or playing what looks like a samurai character, you know. So you're like, okay, so you're trying to be so different that you end up going back to the same place. So
yeah. I mean, that's the only way this kind of logically makes sense to me. Is like, okay, they got an actor who's of Asian descent, so let's make him into a samurai.
yeah, right.
That's the only
If you
way.
weren't, yeah,
I'm reading into it. I don't know. I haven't looked into, casting or whatever, or
yeah,
done any
yeah,
of the research. It just seems like that because otherwise it doesn't really fit.
yep.
And yeah, I think let's just preface this by saying we got no problem with diversity. I think
No,
that should,
I mean, of course, Matt. It's
because people
2022.
can misinterpret whatever, right? So let's just preface this by saying I think whatever diversity is good, we should have that,
Yeah,
as long as it makes sense for the material that you're showing. And a lot of the times Hollywood is just trying to be so like politically correct that they've gone
yeah,
overboard,
yeah.
and it doesn't fit anymore, and it like hits you in the face,
Yeah,
right?
where you're like, oh, you're trying way too hard to make this ethnically diverse, and it doesn't quite make sense in this context. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And in fact, let's just say in fantasy you can take more
Liberties.
liberties
Yeah.
because it's fantasy. Somebody came up with it, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't need to be necessarily historically accurate. But like Hollywood has also done this with movies that are supposed to depict some part of history,
Hmm.
and it just doesn't work. It sits out like a sore thumb.
Can you give us a couple of examples where recently you maybe might have observed this, like taking too many liberties with historical casting? Like I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, and I have
Well,
noticed I just kind of like I just shake my head at it, and I'm like, bloody
you're
Hollywood,
putting me
you
on the
know.
spot.
Uh,
I think they made one. What's that? What's that show called? Okay, the one I do remember is Call of Duty, which is not a movie, but like the recent Call of Duty, was it Vanguard? I think you told me about this,
oh, the video game. Yeah,
the
yeah,
video
yeah.
game, where they have, they're not showing the Nazi symbols.
Well, a lot of World War II video games are doing this now, where it's like considered offensive apparently, or some reason. Like I think Battlefield 5 did it, and I was just like, what? Like that's historical fact. So so what they do is they show all the Nazi regalia, the banners and stuff, but they don't have the swastika on it, so they just have the Iron Cross, and that's meant to represent Nazis. And the logic behind it, I remember reading it somewhere on Reddit or something, because I was kind of noticing that. I was like, well, none of these officers are wearing regalia which have the swastika on it, just has the Iron Cross. And somebody was mentioning, oh, it's because they don't want to promote anti-Semitism or something, and it's apparently illegal in Germany to
Yeah, I
then
know it's
sell
illegal in
clothes.
Germany, but
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
don't need to do it in the rest of the world.
I think that's just going too far, mate, because like you're covering up the horrors of history then by covering up that symbol. Like, how's that promoting anti-Semitism? Like, so you're afraid people are going to use that as a gateway into racism? Like, is that the only gateway into racism? Or
I hate to break it to people. People are going to do that anyway. If you have predilections in that direction, you're going to do it anyway. This is not going to stop you. And like,
and it's a game, for God's sake. So like
yeah,
they're showing like tits, and they're showing like naked people in games these days and stuff, and it's very adult. But like a
yeah. I
symbol
mean
is supposedly
that's a good
taboo.
point.
Come
Like you're
on,
treating people like children. Like
basically.
I hate to break it to these showrunners or these you know
Game designers,
game
yeah.
designers. The Nazis existed. They were abrasive and upfront about showing off their symbol. They
Hmm.
had it on everything, their flags, their uniforms, right?
Yeah.
It existed. They did horrible
It
things.
was a
They were a thing.
brand, mate. It was a massive there was like it was basically brand marketing in a way. Don't have any ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know, that it's historical fact. So that kind of pissed me off, like not having that, like not that not that like I'm like, oh, I want to see more, Nazi history or something, but it's it's part
No,
of
we're
something
we're
people need to understand and
we're
know.
just looking to be historically accurate. It
That's right.
existed. We're not looking for you to put it on things that didn't have it,
Yeah.
right? Okay, that would be
That would be
going.
fucked up, mate.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be fucked up. But like the Nazi Germany existed. They went about doing the horrible things that they did,
Yeah.
and you're making a game about that. So what the hell? Just be historically accurate. The other thing that
Yeah.
this game also got wrong is, let's call out, the U.S. had segregated battalions, right?
Yes.
Right, which they're not also showing. Which, I mean, this is, I guess, taboo to talk about or whatever, but that existed in 1940s. It was, the U.S. had a lot of racism, and they had segregated battalions. There were black only battalions, and they didn't
Yeah.
mix with the white battalions.
Yeah, and they also, I think, had native soldiers that stayed separate from the white soldiers and stuff, like in war. So this is like well-known historical facts, mate. Like, but your point about Call of Duty Vanguard is that they're not showing any Nazi regalia, just as Battlefield did. Now, I'm not sure if this has been changed, but like last I heard, like they're also omitting Nazi symbols and stuff from the game. And what was the other thing you were mentioning about Call of Duty Vanguard um, about diversity and
Yeah, the
taking too much
battalions.
liberty? Yeah,
I mean, just you wouldn't have mixed race battalions. So that was or
mhm,
soldiers walking around. That just didn't happen.
yeah,
I wish it did, but it didn't. So like, let's just be honest.
yeah,
The other thing, okay, going away from enough
yeah.
of shitting on Call of Duty. Yeah, what I was going to mention is I was talking about a TV show. I think Troy. There was like a recent Troy adaptation that had Achilles played by a black actor.
Oh,
I guess that
is this a Netflix Troy?
yeah, the Netflix
Oh,
one.
okay, okay. I haven't
So it's
watched that,
supposed to
mate.
be like a. It just wouldn't. Again, it's kind of Troy. You can argue is kind of mythological, although recently I think there's been some sort of historical. Historians have found that Troy might have existed as a real city.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not sure about that, but
yeah. I think yeah,
nonetheless, I don't think you know people of African descent were in that part of the world when Troy
right.
was happening, to my knowledge. Right, and Achilles, etc., are mythological characters from, what is it, Greek mythology,
Yeah,
right?
the Iliad. Yeah,
The Iliad, and people from African descent wouldn't have been depicted in Greek mythology, so it kind of doesn't make sense there. Am I
huh.
wrong there?
Yeah. I mean, I noticed that in some movies too. Like, I think it was the Outlaw King, the movie with Chris Pine and Florence Pugh that I was watching, where I realized um, we had there was a couple of scenes where they had like black people in Scotland during the time of William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, and it kind of like I I was kind of like, Was that ever a thing at the time? Maybe a slave or two, but like walking about freely and stuff. I don't know about that, mate. Like, I have to look at some. Maybe our listeners who might know a little about history could help us out in narrowing this down. But like, it just seems kind of odd and out of place for African people or people of non-local descent in Scotland at the time of William Wallace to be out and about. I don't know,
Yeah,
just
I
a
mean,
feeling I got.
yeah, from the perspective I'm coming at it from
Right.
is let's try to be historically accurate
Yeah.
whenever we can.
Yeah.
And that's really the only perspective. That's my only gripe. And then, yeah, if somebody can show us that, hey, we're totally wrong here, and black people were out and about in historical
In the UK, yeah.
in the
Well, in the
UK,
UK, well,
yeah, then hey, I'll come out
Scotland
here and
and
say I'm
stuff at the
wrong.
time.
Like
Yeah.
totally. I have nothing against
But I mean,
being wrong here.
let me just say this as well. Like, it didn't feel out of place in that movie. It's just something that was there in the marketplace. I think it was in Outlaw King. There's a scene early in the movie where they show the decapitated head of William Wallace being put in the square, and you notice a couple of actors, and you're like, huh, did they have people of African heritage in Scotland at the time? I don't know. So it is something that stands out to me as well. And this is just like our whole little diatribe, little tangent point about not being able to like taking too much liberties with diversity in your TV shows or your historical retellings of tales where it doesn't apply. So not
Yeah,
all the shows get it right.
yeah. I think this show in particular got it wrong.
Yeah,
They were trying
that's something I
extra
felt.
hard. I felt like they spent more time on this than on the actual story itself.
Yeah, because like I had no problems with the casting, the main cast or otherwise, but then I felt like on certain places it was kind of jarring to see like that level of diversity where like like in Game of Thrones you have this really interesting, very subtle way of doing this where, the northerners or people in the north, they're mostly white and they'll have a few colored people strewn in there, same as Iron Islanders. And as you start going a little bit south, so King's Landing and Dorne, you start getting a little bit more ethnic. And Dothraki are generally, darker skinned people, and they're different ethnicity. And so white faces stand out amongst the Dothraki. And so kind of like it works in that context. And I know like it's not always spot on. For example, in Dorne, you have the Sand Sisters being played by three actresses. One's white, one's Asian, and British, and then one's a Kiwi. But for the look of it, they do look like they could be sisters. So that's good casting in my opinion. Whereas like in Wheel of Time, sometimes I felt like when, for example, they went to Shinar in like the last couple of seasons. I think it's Shinar. I can't remember the last fortress before the Frontier and the Blight. Yeah, it's like a whole mix of things going on, and you're like, wait, what? Because the king is very Asian looking. I think it is an Asian actor, and then his sister is an Asian act portrayed by an Asian actress and stuff, and then all the all the soldiers are like super mixed. So you've got a brown guy, you've got a white guy, and I'm just like, is like what's going on? Like I'm confused as to what this region is supposed to represent. So sometimes my point is you can point to regions by just describing a general ethnicity, which makes sense. And I also like to say, like, for example, people might say, okay, maybe Star Wars does the same thing. How does that work? That's space. So that works in that context because you have intergalactic travel and stuff. So there's more chance of mixing and melanging around in Star Wars. It makes sense over there in a planetary intergalactic advanced time concept, but like in this time, I don't know, mate.
And then going back to Game of Thrones, did you mention King's Landing? Like also King's
Oh yeah.
Landing was a place where they did was a good example where mixing different
Yeah,
ethnicities really made sense, because it's a big
yeah,
city where people from all different regions are coming and intermingling. That really worked. That
yeah,
was a good example of showing diversity.
yeah. It's kind of like the financial capital of Game of Thrones, right? Like it's the most powerful city, I believe, in Westeros. It's where the king lives, so it makes
Yeah.
sense that more people would come there to seek fortune, and so you have a nice balance of diversity and stuff. But yeah, just
So
something that kind of also did make sense about Game of Thrones. Sorry, about Wheel of Time.
yeah, the one thing, okay, so the one thing I'll say about this, and really what turned me off, is I want to watch fantasy shows
Yeah.
to kind of put me into this other world, take me out of my current reality, this whatever shitty reality we live in sometimes, and take me
Mm-hmm.
into this other world, right? This new concept or reality or area that somebody has thought of.
Yeah.
But then if you start to put in, concepts and cultures and um, you know, mentions from our current reality, and you bring them into this fantasy world, then that throws me off. Then that I'm not getting that otherworldly experience anymore, because I'm seeing examples here and there of the real world coming into play, influencing this other world. And I'll give you one
Mm.
example where I really kind of hit me, is that
Okay.
there was this one scene where we saw a bunch of Aes Sedai, and I think one of them was wearing a headscarf. And then
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah. The red, one of the red Aes Sedai, the red Aja.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I got nothing against headscarves. I don't really care about it. Like, I'm agnostic about
Mm-hmm.
it. But the thing is, that's a cultural slash religious symbol of the real world, and you're
Right.
bringing that into this fantasy world, and that totally takes me out of this fantasy world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not a symbol
Yeah.
from
Okay.
this fantasy world. It's a symbol from the real world, right? And
Yeah. No,
I feel
it's
the same way if somebody was wearing a cross, or somebody had a turban on, or
yeah.
think of whatever else, real world symbol that clearly stands out.
Well, I mean, they didn't do it with turbans or stuff, right? Like they didn't do it with anything else. It was just specifically a woman in a face
Yeah,
cloth,
what I'm
which
saying is, if
yeah,
it's not really about the headscarf
or
per
headscarf.
se, it's
Sorry.
about
Yes.
any sort of real
Mhm.
world symbol. If somebody had a cross on, I would be like, why does somebody, is Christianity a thing in this world? Like,
Yeah.
why does this person have his cross? Because it's supposed to be a fantasy world, not have symbols from the real world.
Yeah. I mean, and so I'll give them props. Like the Aes Sedai, so women who can channel the one power, which is like the big central theme. The one power is sort of like the Force from Star Wars. You can do various things with it. It empowers you, and so they have women especially who come to the White Tower to train in this, how to control the Force. And so in that context, the diverse structure of the Aes Sedai like school, I would say, or the White Tower as they call it. Again, very Lord of the Rings here. That makes sense. I'm okay with that. But like, I think historically, if you look at it, like things were very regional back in the day. So like there wasn't a lot of outsider mingling, or if it was pretty down low, I would imagine. Do you know what I mean? Like people were
Yeah.
protective, way more protective back then.
Well, it was just harder to travel, right?
That's it, man.
That's the main
That's another
reason.
thing. Yeah. Like journeys were very hazardous, right? You
Yeah.
had so much wildlife and disease and distances and weather, all these factors contributed to less long distance travel. It's not as easy as we have it today, so. But let's move on and get into a little bit of the bigger differences that were kind of obvious in the show from the books. So we alluded to one of the big points at the beginning is Perrin's wife and Lan sort of being cast a little bit differently than he is in the books, which you know it's okay, but like maybe don't cast the Asian actor as a samurai looking fella. Um, so yeah, man, like what did you think about the pacing of the show in general? Do you felt like what did you feel like somebody that's not read the book? Do you feel like the show dragged on a little bit or it moved too quickly? What was your impression of that?
Yeah, generally I thought it was okay. I think in the first episode they had the Trollops attack happen in the first episode, right?
Yeah, the Trollocs
Yeah, so
attacks
they had a
and
big
at festival night. Yeah,
yeah, so they had a
Beltane.
big opening pilot scene, and then it kind of got into the whole Fellowship of the Ring mode where they're like traveling around again,
Yeah,
way too close to Lord of the Rings for my liking. It just seems like a straight up ripoff.
yeah.
And this is not the show's fault. It just seems like the sorry Wheel of
No, that's how the
Time
books were written. Yeah,
folks, like fans. I just feel like there's too many things being taken from Lord of the Rings here. But yeah, generally it seemed okay. Like I think you've mentioned this to me many times, and it's just been a general problem
yeah,
about Hollywood is they don't really take the time to build up um, movies or build up shows. They just like to get into the meat of the action very quickly. They don't do
oh
enough
yeah,
character development, etc. This is not just a problem with Wheel of Time. It's just been a general problem with the entire industry. And maybe it's a fault of our modern times where people want to get instant gratification.
that's
They
it,
don't
mate.
have the
Right? Yeah,
patience. So maybe
yeah,
Hollywood is just reacting to that. But
yeah.
to us, that's annoying because we want to see some of the best movies we've seen are ones that really, really take the time. They almost to a fault. Maybe they're like, "Oh, is this so boring?" Because we're not used to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like two ways of going about it, mate. Like one is you have such a strong script that you're able to like launch directly into the heart of the matter without wasting too much time building up. So for example, um, we'll obviously use the best there is. Chris Nolan again. Like if you notice some of his movies, he displays a great variance in his build-up time. So like if you look at Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, for example, two radically different sort of beginnings. Like Dark Knight just like bang,
Oh yeah.
warp speed.
Wow.
Like you're right into it and it doesn't let off until the movie ends. Dark Knight Rises, on the other hand, has a much slower build up. I mean, okay, admitted, I admit that the whole Bane takes the plane thing is fast paced. But then if you move on from there and you compare one of his latest movies to a Tenet, for example, again, it doesn't wait around. It just launches straight in to the action and then gives you a small breather after, like a breathless sequence. The movie in general is very breathless. It's very fast paced. But then you switch over to the Prestige, for example, and it's a lot slower. Batman
Well,
Begins.
Begins. Yeah,
Oh,
Begins is the best example, I think, because
yeah,
that's a great example of building things up.
that's right.
And
You
you
don't
don't
even see
even,
Batman,
yeah,
right?
you don't even see Batman until half the movie is over.
And it's in shadows and it's in like quick cuts and it's the effect is so jarring when you first see him and you hear that growl. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's I think one of the best examples of really, really building it up.
Yeah, versus
And
launching into it. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, you're right. There's it's a movie making technique. You can do it with a big bang, which he's also shown as he's very good at doing.
Oh my God. Yeah, mate.
But it tends to be well, like a lot of movies also make the mistake of there's just like too much helter kelter action. Like they never
Oh,
stop. I think a lot of the Marvel movies have this problem. They need an action scene every 2 minutes or something like that.
Jesus. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like they're almost afraid of character development time. It seems like I don't know.
Very few of them actually did a good job at character development. Like I remember the first Iron Man movie that Marvel did. I loved how it built up Robert Downey Jr.'s character. Like you got his brash persona and then you see him get captured and you kind of cut back and forth between his past and his present, and it takes time. Like you don't even see the real Iron Man suit till again halfway point of the movie, which is good. I think it's hard to find another movie where they did this in the Marvel verse, for example. um I don't know, mate. Like Man of Steel, yeah, they took their time, but I think they just tried to imitate too much of Batman Begins in that movie. Because like you can't apply the dreary brooding filter to your Superman character and expect people to like it. Because Superman is supposed to be this like symbol of hope and positivity and radiance, it's just it's he's like the sun basically, right? Indestructible pretty much. And so I think that's one mistake that they did to that Man of Steel movies. Like, don't try to like Hollywood sees something work and they think that formula is going to apply to everything. Greatest example, I tell you this often, JP, is the Bourne shaky cam footage. Like, oh my goodness me. Like, I will defend the Bourne movies until my very last breath because I think that changed the way action movies are made. But like people locked on, like Hollywood in general, locked onto that shaky cam footage, which works for the Bourne character because here's a man with no memory. He's struggling to remember pieces. Everything is very jittery and jumpy. He's paranoid. The shaky cam footage kind of works for him. But if you go back and look at the Bourne Identity, there wasn't that many shaky cam fights. There's a lot of steady cam fights as well, which I think a mix of that works. Like you need balance in everything. And I think the later Bond movies, so the ones that came after the Supremacy and I think Ultimatum, they did it to like a much higher degree, and that was just showing the trend. So that's my thing with Hollywood, mate. They see one thing that works and they try to apply that to every instance. They try to like copy it as best as you can. And I get that way of working. You want to imitate the best to make sure you have the most success, but um it doesn't always work, It doesn't always work. So
Yeah, definitely not.
yeah. So yeah, like we were talking about some of the big differences that we've noticed in between the show and the books here. And one of the things that almost like ruined the show for me was, so what happened was I think we were somewhere near the third episode or something, and I was looking online to see how many episodes were released for the show. And I came across an inadvertent spoiler in Google. The results for my Google search, thank you, Google, was there was some article boldly proclaiming that the actress who's cast as Nynaeve, I forget her name, Zoe Robbins, I think, or Zoe Robinson, Zoe Robbins, I believe.
Robbins.
Zoe Robbins, yeah, mate. Thanks. So there was an interview with her, like, oh, Zoe Robinson being cast as the new, the Dragon Reborn. So I was like, so I hadn't seen the episode where this big moment comes, and I was kind of like, I called JP soon after that, and I was like, mate, I think they're trying to gender swap the whole thing again. Like, this is another trend we've noticed. They're trying to gender swap James Bond. They've gender swapped Thor basically. They've gender swapped fucking Iron Man and many new things. So more to come later, I promise. But yeah, so there was this article that was included in the in the Google search saying, oh, Zoe Robinson being cast as the Dragon Reborn. And I was like, what? And then I saw the episode, and it's just so much shake my head. Absolutely. So we're talking about the episode where they capture Logain, who's the false dragon. He can still channel, but he's very powerful. But he's not the Dragon Reborn. So they suspect like he's been corrupted. So men in this fantasy world, when they channel the power, they lose their minds because the male side of the one power is being tainted by evil. So it leads to them going
Crazy,
they
right?
become, well, not just crazy, but they become delusional, and they start having hallucinations and stuff. So they eventually go mad is basically what the premise is. So the Aes Sedai, fearing Logain is not the real dragon and he's going to cause untold damage because he can channel, they have to kind of like I think it's called stilling or gentling, I forget. Basically they have to cut him off from the one power. So it's kind of like magical lobotomy. So they have to shield him permanently from accessing the power. And yeah, so the conclusion of that episode, they basically show One Aes Sedai dead, they show Lan dying, and they show Nynaeve gravely injured. And not Nynaeve, sorry, Moraine gravely injured. And Nynaeve comes in, sees all this, gets hella angry, and then just basically she reverses time or something. She just brings everybody back to life, and she almost obliterates Logain. And they kind of insinuate that she's the Dragon Reborn because there's a moment where I think Moraine mentions your power. She's saying to Logain, "You don't know what power what power you possess, but you're not the real dragon. You're going mad already. The real Dragon Reborn, you're like a pinprick of light in compared to the sun." And then when Nynaeve lets her power go and takes down Logain, Logain whispers the power of the sun. So it's kind of insinuated that she is the Dragon Reborn. So that's where that article that I read as a spoiler, unfortunately, thought that she is the new Dragon Reborn, and they did a whole article with her. And now I can't find that article anywhere on Google. And that was one of the big, like, oh, I'm about to tap out of this series moment for me. I was just like, no, they did
Yeah.
not just do this because it's not in the book. It
Yeah,
never
it was-
happens in the book.
or Nynaeve doing this whole major, spell or whatever. That you
Yeah,
mean that
yeah.
didn't happen in the books?
No, mate, like I think I was on book 5 or 6 or something. And to this point, Nynaeve is just training and using her power. So she's shown no potential whatsoever to be the Dragon Reborn or even have like channeling abilities
Right.
proper.
To me, as a non-book reader, it almost seems like, having watched the entire series, it still seems to me that Nynaeve looks to be stronger
Yeah.
and have more power than the Dragon Reborn, who, if I understand correctly, is supposed to be able to match up, go head to head against the Dark One.
Yeah.
So I assume he or she should be very powerful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come across that way. Rand, even like at the, we'll get into the last episode.
Yeah.
He takes on, what is it, Ishmael or whatever?
Ishamael, yeah.
Ishmael, and defeats him. But he had to use a prop. He needed some help, like that statue or whatever,
that's
right?
true. Yeah, no, that didn't happen in the book either.
Yeah. So I haven't seen anything like that powerful from Rand.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, are you really the Dragon Reborn? I'm still questioning it, to be honest.
Like, we didn't see him channeled properly until the episode in the Ways, which I'll come to. But like, again, this just seems like an episode, the Nynaeve beating Logain with her channeling abilities. It just seemed like an episode kind of, they took the liberty of just writing that episode because it was not like there was no incident like that in the books until like I think one of the latter books, because like I haven't come across Logain, or I don't remember coming across an extended Logain sequence, his capture and everything is just alluded to, I think, in book 2 or something like that.
So
because there's no, yeah.
So I here's a theory for you. Tell me what you think here. This kind of got me thinking. Couldn't they still make Nynaeve, if they wanted, the showrunners, Nynaeve the Dragon Reborn? Because at the end, Rand and Moraine don't actually take on the Dark One, right?
Yeah,
they take on
his lackeys.
His lackeys.
Yeah.
So technically, if the showrunners wanted, they could still make they could still change the story around to make Nynaeve the Dragon Reborn in future seasons, right? That could happen. Because you could just be like, oh, Rand, Moraine screwed up. It's not really Rand. It's been Nynaeve all along, because they never really went to take on the Dark One.
Well, they've changed a whole lot of stuff, right? Like, we saw this Nynaeve thing happen, which kind of is interesting because, like, Nynaeve is shown to be very capable in the books, and she's got a bit of a temper on her, but she is very wise beyond her years, and she can channel. So, like, Moraine teaches both women to channel, Egwene and Nynaeve, and so she kind of, obviously being a woman, connects more with them. But Moraine is way more concerned about Rand. Like, from the get-go, she kind of knows something's up with Rand, and Matt and Perrin are shown to be like closely associated to Rand, but they're not of that level of like importance. So I don't know, mate. Like, let's talk about like the overall structure of the first book versus the first season, where I kind of think the showrunners missed their mark by not showing us these like long journey periods. Because like one of my favorite couple of parts in the Eye of the World are just amazing for me. Like one of my favorite parts is when they go to Shadar Logoth, which is this abandoned city, the most prosperous city before the last war with the Shadow, and they go into it and it's completely abandoned. Um, the way it's described in the books, Shadar Logoth is wide. It's a prosperous city. This in the show, the set looked tiny. Do you know what I mean? Like there was no build up, there's no suspense. Like you could have done a whole episode of like suspense and like mystery about Shadar Logoth, and it did felt like it didn't really get its treatment, you know.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that. Like that's one of the best sequences in the books. And there's another character they didn't introduce in Shadar Logoth, which is Mordeth, but it's okay. I don't really care because the way Mordeth is described in Shadar Logoth, it would be kind of weird to interpret him in the books. So I'm okay with that. And yeah, like
To me, it was
that
fine. Like because again, I'm not coming from the perspective of the books, so it was
yeah, it's so
okay.
much better in the books, mate. Like
So if I'm sure I would agree with you if I'd read the books.
yeah.
But yeah, the whole setup was okay. It didn't seem too important to me.
Yeah.
And didn't seem too grand as well, which is kind of what you're alluding to.
Well, because in Shutter Logoth, there's a big incident that happens is with Matt, that Matt steals Mordeth, tricks Matt into stealing the ruby hilted dagger, which basically becomes a sort of like vessel for the evil of Shadar Logoth, the mist thing, to escape. So basically, Shadar Logoth was corrupted by some kind of unseen evil. It's like the spirit that lives inside of the city. It's not human, it's something ethereal. And so part of it escapes with Matt in the dagger and it possesses him. And so Matt kind of becomes this vessel for this evil in the book. And so, like, if you think about it in the books, it's kind of like a horror movie where they're forced to camp out because in Shadar Logoth, because they had no chance, because Moraine is weak and she can't fight off the chasing Trollocs, so they run into Shadar Logoth to escape the Trollocs on their heels, because the Trollocs won't enter there because they're afraid of the evil of Shadar of the city. And so these guys are like camping out in abandoned old ruins and stuff, and it's like this, they're all very jumpy, and they sleep close to each other like around a fire. Like it's really horror movie stuff. It's like you're waiting for the jump scare to happen, and it's fantastically written in the books. And I remember, like, Matt being the naughty one in the group, the restless one. He goes off exploring on his own and he finds Mordeth talking to him from the shadows, and Mordeth leads him into this treasure room and stuff, and it's just really well written. And then obviously, all hell breaks loose after that. So the escape and the time they spent hiding in Shadar Logoth is very exciting for me in the books. And
So
I don't know. Yeah.
I think what happened is, if I'm correctly reading into the rumor mill, they wanted to have 2 more episodes to do character development, but
Right.
Amazon, I guess, wanted to save money. I don't know why. I mean, Amazon
Yeah.
got way more money than you need.
Well,
They
rocket fuel isn't cheap, mate.
yeah, I know.
Okay. Yeah. So
They're
they cut them off.
yeah, so they want to have 2 more episodes. I don't know if they would have developed this particular scene or whatever, but yeah, they only let them have 8. It seemed like they obviously needed more.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, every time I look up the episode list on Google, it says it has 9 episodes on IMDb, and I've only seen 8. So I'm still not sure if the series is concluded. It looks like it's been concluded.
I hope so. The other thing I'm
Savage, bruv.
finding is that COVID have played kind of wreaked havoc
Yeah,
on their filming, and
yeah.
and so that might have
Yeah.
thrown everything off. I don't know.
Yeah. No, as long as like I don't know, as long as they keep a little faith with the crew, I think I think they can do better. I think if Amazon pitches them a little bit more time and money, I think they can obviously do a better job at this. So I think the first season is very truncated. I think you're right. I got that feeling right off the bat. I'm like, something seems off. Like they're rushing through this, doesn't fit. Even Moraine, for example, I mentioned a hell of a, you know, I gave a little bit of a hiding to the creators on the character of Lan and Daniel Henney being cast as him. Mate, Moraine, where's the staff? Where's the high lady of the lady of like she's very noble in her upbringing and stuff, so she's very prim and proper. Rosamund Pike at times just kind of looks like, she's like disheveled a lot. She's like, yeah, but she's always in a bit of a rush.
Don't they kind of account for that by saying she's been out there, traveling
20
and
years
searching?
Yeah.
So maybe that, makes you don't really care about,
but the thing
making
is
sure your nails are right or something,
No, but mate, like she's a powerful sorceress, so she's always able to like replenish her energy and everybody else's quickly. Like she's very, very strong in the books. Like Moraine is like one of the main characters. So
yeah, but can her magic do makeup? Is my question.
Well, I mean, like, I know Hollywood's makeup can do magic. So
well, not always. You need to go under the knife sometimes for that.
Crikey! Don't get canceled now. But
I'm still here.
I mean, Rosamund Pike, mate. Moraine didn't have the staff either, and I'm just like, take a minute, read the books, and like get the basic details right, because it endears you to the fans. I feel if you get some of the key details right, it definitely helps you.
I totally agree. And here's where I think The Witcher has a big advantage, because their main actor, Henry Cavill, who plays The Witcher, Geralt of Rivia, he is a big fan of he's a huge fan of the Witcher series.
He can't stop talking about it in interviews. It's lovely.
Yeah, I love it. He's really geeking out, and this is something I recently discovered about him, so loving that. And that really helps, because he's literally on set being like, you know what, that doesn't make sense. Don't do that. That's awesome.
Hey, that's very like thespian. That's very Shakespearean way of looking at things. Because like I remember one of the TV shows that I felt like has been most closely following the books and actually did probably the best job of any show that I've watched. The Granada Sherlock Holmes with Jeremy Brett from the 80s. These guys would like walk around with a copy of Conan Doyle in their pockets on set, and the guy, the lead actor, the great Jeremy Brett, who played Sherlock Holmes, he was extremely sensitive to like what mattered in the books and what doesn't add up. So like it pays off, guys. It definitely pays off. Like I wouldn't say perfectionism is always good, but in certain cases it helps. Like, your Shakespearean plays and the actors who believe in that kind of aesthetic and that kind of like dedication to their craft, I think it's important to have. And like I think that's kind of what Henry Cavill is kind of doing here. Like he knows the lore, he plays the games. He's got a good idea. He's like, the character would not do this. It's I've noticed this with Christopher, the late great Christopher Lee used to do this with his characters as well. He would know stuff, just look into the making of Lord of the Rings, you'll see what I mean. So it's good stuff. When actors know their shit, that's really, really good stuff. And honestly, just on that part, I kind of feel like Rosamund Pike seems to be the only person who's actually read any of the Wheel of Time books around here, because she seems to be the one kind of like taking charge of the whole state of affairs here. That's just
I mean, as an actor, if I got into some sort of fantasy, was cast in some sort of fantasy show, I'd want to read the books, or at least read a synopsis or a summary of the story. Otherwise, like, how do I ground my portrayal in some sort of reality that makes sense? And it's really the show's job to make sure that the actors are doing it, and actors can go take it to the next level by really, paying attention to detail.
Yeah. And you have to train, mate. Like this is why they use so much CGI and stuff. Like in certain cases, if you have a combat heavy show and you're not training for it, or you're not able to do the stunts, which is why I feel like cast good actors. That's depending on the role. If it's a fighting role, cast a fighter, like, and hope for the best in terms
Okay.
of acting.
On
Yeah.
that note, we got to talk about one piece of scenery here, or one
Yeah.
scene that kind of really threw me off, like fighting scene where we have the pregnant soldier.
Oh yeah. Okay. The Rand's origin story.
Yeah. So
Right.
that, again, that really threw me off because that's far from realistic. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I've never been pregnant, obviously. So, but I hear that it's very tough and it's very
Mhm.
painful.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to move like that and fight off like 10 guys. Yeah, no.
Like
I'm with you on
that's
that,
not even
mate. And she's going into labor during the fight. Come
yeah.
on.
I mean, that's not even realistic. If some like bulky dude who has years of experience, 1 on 8 never, almost never works,
Yeah.
or whatever it was, 1 on 4. You're just gonna get, again, Hollywood always gets this wrong, right? Because they always kind of
Totally,
show,
mate.
okay, I'm going 1 on 4, it's so cool, blah blah blah. And like in real life, they're all gonna attack you at the same time. They're gonna, take
Overwhelm
you
you,
down,
basically.
overwhelm you. It's
And
not gonna
it's a
work.
pregnant woman who's going into labor. Like, her fucking water just broke. And I'm just like, okay, okay, I have to say this, by the way. I love the action sequence. Like, that was some of the crispest action in the entire series because it was well choreographed. It looked badass. But again, like you said, mate, like the pregnancy thing, the pregnant soldier, that took me right out of it because I was
Yeah,
like,
it just threw me off.
mate,
Like,
no, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, even a non-pregnant person would have trouble fighting off like 8 trained soldiers in the heat of battle in the snow. Doesn't work.
yeah, exactly, right. And
Mm.
yeah, you're right. There were some cool scenes there, but
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
you're
Very
doing it while you're
300, yeah.
pregnant, and that's all I could focus on.
Yeah, no, the actress did a fine job. It's just kind of ridiculous that. So they're trying to show how badass the Aiel are with these desert people. Now this is like the Dune part of Wheel of Time. So they live out in the desert and they're kind of like ninjas, and so they're very, very capable fighters. The whole system is kind of like Spartans meet ninjas, so it's very, very combat heavy. But yeah, um, that wasn't in the books either, right? It's
Oh, that
only
was not in the books.
nope.
I thought I remember talking to you about this, and you said it was. Maybe I
Well,
misunderstood.
the fact that Rand's mother went into battle pregnant with him and she was found by Tamal Thor, that's in the books, but it's shown as visions. So either it's Tam having a fever dream, talking about it to Rand, or Rand is then starting to have dreams as he grows more in sync with the one power. Um, it's shown to him through visions and stuff. So, but the fight was never described. Like, yeah, she was in battle, but
Yeah, but,
she wasn't the only one surrounded by like.
you know, maybe I could have believed it, or it would have been semi-believable if she was like an archer or something, shooting at people, like really skilled
Long
archers,
distance, yeah.
long distance. Even then, it's kind of stretching it for me.
Yeah.
Because first of all, if you're pregnant, what the hell are you doing on a battlefield? Like, don't you want to protect your child? Like, why would you even risk your child like that? That seems kind of frivolous to me.
And the other thing, mate, like, it's not a battle that's come to you. Like, they don't mention this very strongly in the show, but like the Aiel are from the desert, so it's not like an invading army where you're forced to protect your land when you're pregnant. This is like you seem to be on a battlefield somewhere else, so you voluntarily traveled while pregnant to go fight.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly right. And even the best, I've been watching or binging whatever, some
Yeah.
Navy SEALs talking about
Yeah.
how they approach, or if you got into some sort of street battle or whatever, or street fight or something, what should you do? And the first things they're like, try to avoid it. It's a
Mate,
bad idea. If you can avoid it, avoid it.
What have you been watching? I haven't heard about this. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's a YouTube rabbit hole. Sometimes it
oh,
happens.
okay, I see.
And they're like, this is like a bulky dude or whatever,
Yeah.
and you can clearly tell he knows how to fight. Nobody's gonna fuck with him. But even he's like, if you can avoid it, if you can walk away from it, do
Yeah.
it, because you never know what the other guy's gonna have. He might have a knife, he might have friends,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And you're not gonna be able to win, and no matter how skilled a warrior you are, if you
Mhm.
go 1 against 5 or something.
Mate, we've recently seen like a lot of UFC where like big name fighters have gone down in shock defeats or upsets to lesser known fighters and stuff. And like combat is hugely dependent on luck, mate. One good hit, it can turn the tide completely against you. So, you know,
Yeah,
try
and
to
then
avoid conflict, really,
yes, yeah,
if you
definitely.
can.
So yeah, it totally threw me off.
Yeah.
It was just seemed like such a weird thing to see.
Yeah, unrealistic. Like a lot of the stuff that was shown, in not in the realm of fantasy, but like just it's something you could have done with that. They could have shown it a little differently, whatever. Yeah,
Oh
fine.
yeah, maybe they should have framed it when she was forced to be in that position. Maybe that would make sense then.
Mhm.
Like if you're forced, you're trapped, or somebody attacks
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Backs to the wall kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, then you have no choice, right?
Right on. Right on.
Anybody can get that.
But yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway,
for sure. I agree. The other thing that kind of didn't sit well with me was the depiction of the ways. Like this is the second best thing about I think the Eye of the World book, in my opinion, is their transit through the way gates and the way they leave. So the whole first book is travel, get separated, stop, find each other again, then start a second leg of your journey while you get everybody together, and stuff happens along the way and stuff. That's the general structure of the first book, rinse and repeat. So let's talk about the waygate, mate. Like in the book, the waygate is hidden in the city where the White Tower is, and they kind of leave in the dead of night and they take their horses through it. It's like concealed in plain view, but nobody knows how to open it but the Ogier. And the rules are, I think, Moraine can't use the one power inside the ways because she might attract the Black Wind, which is Machin Shin, and it's evil, obviously. But this show, fucking hell, they just throw the waygate out in the open, like a couple of door frames just resting out in the field. And apparently, you don't even need the Ogier to open the waygate. You just need Moraine to zap it
yeah.
from the outside.
So that was
Which
so
kind of
confusing. That was
yeah,
so confusing. Like, why did the Ogier even come along then? Like, what
because
was the
he could
point of
read,
him?
because the Ogier constructed the ways, I believe, and they
Yeah,
left like
right,
markers
right.
inside which only he could read.
But the
But
thing is, the way it was depicted is just like this one narrow path. And I'm like, okay, so you're showing the Ogier is in the ways, showing them the way. But I'm like, there's only one way to go.
no, there isn't one way. There's
Right, that's how
multiple
it seemed
bridges
like.
and stuff. Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
it
they kind
seemed
of
like,
didn't
right?
show it
They
properly.
didn't
Yeah,
really show it. Again, that maybe that just points to just low budget.
yeah,
It just didn't seem. It just seemed so small.
mate. Because in the books, they enter the ways with their horses. They're able to camp and like find places for like 8, 10 people to sleep in. And it's just, this looked like a like a library shelf or like a garden hedge maze or something. Like they couldn't take their horses, they end up dismissing their horses, and like they don't even get Matt to accompany them into the ways. Like I think the actor just tapped out, because what I'm reading is they've replaced him with another actor for
That's
season
what I
2.
hear. That's what I hear.
So yeah.
Well, I don't know if they replaced him or not, but I think.
No, they have.
Oh,
I
okay,
have
okay,
confirmation in front of me. They've replaced
gotcha.
the
What happened to
actor.
the actor? Do you know? Like, does it say?
I think he tapped out. I haven't read what happened to him, but it looks like he had enough of the character of
What,
Matt,
somebody
and
submitted him, or like what happened here? He got thrown into a UFC ring.
he got tapped out by Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yeah, I don't know, mate. Like, I think it's just he probably tapped out because of the script or something or the other. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. Don't descend upon me in the comments. I'm just
I'm definitely gonna
like
quote you on this.
speculating. Um, yeah. So the ways were very disappointing. Like they didn't build up the
So
tension and stuff, and yeah.
yeah, and this is very much like, again, the Lord of the Rings similarity here is Mines of
Minds of
Moria,
Moria. That's
right?
right.
I guess that's what the author was going for, and
Probably.
if you look at the movies, it's done so much better in the movies, right? The
Oh,
Mines of Moria
hugely
depiction.
enjoyable, mate, because it builds up that tension. It's towards the end of the movie. Gandalf makes a big sacrifice play. There's that amazing line, "Fly, you fools," which people will interpret to be,
Or You Shall Not Pass also
oh
happens
yeah,
in there, right?
mate, Gandalf is so badass, honestly. Like Surrey and McKellen, love him. Yeah, I guess it's just this is a bit of a Frankenstein's like amalgamation of like cliches. This book, it's like very Lord of the Rings in its structure. But I remember just going back to the initial working of the Waygate. Like Moraine can open it from the outside, but what happens when she's inside and she wants to open the Waygate again? Like she has to use her power then to open it from the inside, and thus she can easily signal to the Black Wind to come get them. So all the Black Wind has to do is like keep waiting at the exit points of all these bridges, and it's sure to get a good snack, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like stupid like show writers, mate. Like just read the books. Fucking hell, it's the Ogier who knows how to open and close the Waygate. Like I think in the book they do get chased by the Black Wind towards the end of their journey, and they have to hurry along. And the slot, so they have this card relief where you have to like turn the leaf or something. There's some relief. It's a secret passageway, and the Ogier know how to do it. So Loyal's with them, but he can't find the leaf because it's damaged. So Moraine is forced to use the one power to open the Waygate, and they show like it attracts the Black Wind right. It like zeroes in on their position, and I think that's where I think Rand or Nynaeve or somebody channels and helps them get out. And yeah, it's just poorly shown in the book, in the show. Beg your pardon. But one of the things that threw me off was, and I kind of laughed out loud, it was just thrown in to show us that okay, Rand is also able to channel, because up until this point he's done fuck all, is the random fucking Trolloc lurking in the ways. Like
Yeah, one Trolloc. Well,
come
don't they
on,
go
man.
move in groups?
Huge purge of Trollocs, mate. Like they attack in like massive overwhelming numbers. That's their whole thing. And like this one fucking Trolloc is just chilling in the ways. Like how? Where's the others? If there's one, there's a good chance there's like a few others. Like one fucker
Maybe he's a
shows up
loner.
randomly.
I don't know.
Rubbish. And then obviously it's so they just they kind of hit you in the face with it, that Rand tries to protect Egwene, and he totally does it. I'm like, without missing a beat, I'm like, okay, so there's Rand's final first channel instance. I'm like, okay, good. Yeah. The other thing that this show kind of overlooks too, mate, is Rand's dad, Tam. He teaches him this skill of like focusing on the flame. It's like a mental concept. So he teaches it to him during archery, because he's a village boy. They hunt with bows and arrows. So his dad shows him a technique of how to calm himself and like get into the zone when he's aiming. So he talks about focusing on the flame and feeding it your insecurities and your fears and stuff. And that somehow inadvertently helps Rand channel. So
Yeah.
they skip over that part in the TV shows big time. And they cast a great actor, like the actor who plays Roose Bolton, I think, in Game of Thrones. Um,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
he's in this. He's got great screen presence if you use him properly. Like he was fucking amazing as Roose Bolton. But again, you skip past the important points and you focus on bullshit like Nynaeve just Supermaning everybody else back to life. Like it's the thing in Superman 1 where he flies around the world to reverse time to bring Lois Lane back. And I'm just like shaking my head. I'm like, oh,
Again, that mental,
BS.
ability that you talked about. They could have done that if they had, two more
Mate, that's
episodes or
hugely
something.
important, because that's what Rand does in the books all the time. He talks about the flame, the flame, the flame. Do you know what I mean? So
Got it. Yeah, so
yeah.
they totally skipped over that, and maybe they'll randomly introduce it in the next season. I don't know.
I hope the actor who plays Roose Bolton, his name is not coming to me. Yeah, I hope they bring him back, because like I think he was one of the better parts and more seasoned actors in this, so that was good. One of the other things that I think they kind of skipped over is Tom Maryland's character. He plays a pretty decent sized role in the first book. They cast Alexander Willem of the head Amazon TV series in it. I think he's a Danish actor, unless I miss my guess. And he's very believable as Tom Maryland. And I think they kind of really did a good job with his like multicolored patch cloak on the inside. He plays a good song, fits the bard role really well.
But again,
Do you think they're going to bring him back for the next
he
season?
doesn't. I don't think he dies. He doesn't die in the books fighting the Fades, and he doesn't. Hopefully, doesn't get like his role curtailed in this show as well. Because he's a good actor. He's a good actor. He's got good screen presence. You pay attention when he's on screen. Yeah, he should be back. He was a good addition to the cast, I feel. And what else, mate? Like,
Well, we should probably talk about the last battle scene.
yeah,
Did you have anything else? Maybe let's.
I just wanted to quickly go over
yeah.
a couple of these the whole Aes Sedai things, because like I don't think in the books so they introduced Siwan Sanche, who's the leader of the Aes Sedai. She's the Amerlin Seat. She's sort of like the head sorcerer or sorceress in the White Tower, and she's shown to be Moiraine's secret lover, apparently. And I don't know if this happens in the rest of the series of books. Maybe our listeners can help us out there, but I think they're just alluded to as being really good close friends, like sisters, and they just, I think, again, for the sake of sex selling, they just show like the full-on girl-on-girl thing, and I'm just, was this necessary? Like, can there not,
Well,
like, this is following on from my Witcher rant. Is like,
Yeah.
is it necessary for two characters to just be good friends? Like, is it possible for them to be just good friends and not be lovers? Like, for fuck's sake.
Right. So let's just reference what we mean by that Witcher rant,
Yeah.
as we talked about this love triangle in The Witcher and whether we should have that or whether that's necessary or does it add any value
between Geralt, Yennefer, and Triss.
Yeah. And so on this, so they had two things in this show. I don't know if you noticed, is this whatever lesbian couple.
You're
and
right.
then they also tried to create like a love triangle plot between Perrin, Egwene, and Rand as well. Or Egwene or whatever. I can't pronounce these names. I'm just gonna call her Egwene.
I love it. Egwene, it's settled, mate. Egwene. From now on, there's no Egwene anymore. I love it.
Yep. Your name has been changed, Egwene.
Egwene and Benzema.
And yeah, and they have it for like a brief second, barely, and then it's gone, and it's never referenced again.
Mate, it's such shit. It doesn't happen in the books. There's no. Fucking Perrin is like a older brother to,
which is what it looks like in the first part of the season, and that's what their dynamic looks like. I'm like, okay, that's fine, that's great, because he just lost his wife. Why would he be trying to set up like this love triangle thing between
too soon, bruh.
Friends?
Hashtag too soon, bruh.
Between like supposed childhood friends.
Bullshit, mate. Like, and like Nynaeve is the one who lets it slip, whereas Nynaeve is the sort of character that would like yank everyone by the ear and tell them, hey, listen, we have bigger problems than your stupid love triangle woes. And it's such shit. Manufactured conflict. It doesn't work, mate. Like, it's another thing they get
here. I definitely agree. Like, it doesn't work. It was forced, not needed. Right. If you're gonna do it, there's ways to do it, and this is not the right way.
I mean, this is what I'm afraid for will happen in The Witcher, is like, I don't think you need to have a forced love triangle everywhere you look. Like, it's fine, just let it be. You know, like same kind of thinking as like forcing Siwan Sanche and Moiraine to get into like this relationship, that secret relationship. In 4 or 5 books, I have never read about Moiraine using some fucking secret passage through a painting in her room to get into Siwan's quarters and, you know, getting down and dirty. Yeah, it's just fucking stupid Hollywood sex sells nonsense where I'm like, you have legitimate chances to show some stuff happening and to like take matters, you know, into a more romantic sense, but you sacrifice those for like these cheap kind of like, it's almost a clickbait, mate. Like girl on girl, it's clickbait for me. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I mean, it can make sense when done properly.
Yeah,
maybe maybe we're wrong, and then like it happened in the 8th book or something. I don't know.
Somebody clarify this for me, please.
If that's the case, then sure, that's fine then.
But then they're putting stuff from books that are they're putting stuff from books that hasn't happened in the first book, and they're like playing around by cutting and pasting stuff that's happened in the later volumes into the first one just to get like a bit of viewership.
Oh, look at
guess.
this. Apparently, this was implied in the books, man. Are you sure? Maybe these people aren't reading the same books that you're reading. So I just pulled it up.
Oh,
I
cool.
just Googled
Okay.
winteriscoming.net, and the article is called "The Wheel of Time Producers Explain Moraine." They didn't spell Moraine probably. Moraine and Swan Sanchez relationship. And here's a quote. In the books, it's made very clear that Moraine and Swan, is it Swan or Swain?
Siwan.
Okay. I'm totally off there. Siwan are, quote, pillow friends at the White Tower, which is code for an intimate relationship.
Oh, me meow.
Judkins told Nerdist. I don't know who Judkins is. Probably one of the showrunners, I assume. And then she or he goes on to say, after that, the two of them were the only witnesses to Gitara Moroso's foretelling of the birth of the Dragon Reborn. Blah, blah, blah. Since that moment, the two of them have lived their whole lives in tandem, leading up to the moment we see them first meet, quote, on screen in the books in book 2, The Great Hunt, working from within and without of the tower to bring the prophecy they witnessed to fruition. Okay.
Interesting. Okay, well, bloody hell, maybe it was implied in the books, but like, I didn't get to that, so I'm gonna stick to my guns that they were like portrayed more as like close sisters. But hey,
wow, so they had a totally different interpretation.
But mate, like like Hollywood, not Hollywood, but like just in general, people jump to conclusions really quickly. Like one of the things that like gets me is like anytime they show two male friends on screen or even two female friends on screen, it's immediately implied, oh, they're like gay. Like House and Wilson, Sherlock and Watson. I know, like it's just
I think that's a lot of the fans trying to
like superimpose their own fantasies upon characters they can.
Which I'm fine with, whatever. I mean, fans can do whatever.
Fandom, yeah,
that's fandom. To go on, I just want to continue reading from this article a bit, and it adds a bit more context. And so, quote, in this show, we've stuck exactly with that story of them being, quote, pillow friends. Okay. And while it's only hinted at in the books that Moraine and Siwan continue their intimate relationship into adulthood, we've brought that to the forefront. As a gay person reading these books in the 90s and 2000s, to see Moraine being represented as having a relationship with another woman in New Spring was such a huge moment for me. And even still today, to have a queer person as a lead in a fantasy series feels almost shocking. So I guess one of the showrunners is, from the LGBTQ community.
Like, I don't know if they specifically describe them as being like, girl on girl, but I mean, hey, okay, if they're succinctly described as pillow friends, then that's what that means. And okay,
I think it's left to the sense what I'm getting. Right. I guess the sense what I'm getting is left to interpretation. It could go either way.
Right.
And they kind of look to interpret it one way, and you've interpreted it a different way, which is
because I haven't read that book, mate. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You haven't read this book.
I haven't come across that part. No, I just from what I've read, it just sounds like they're really good friends, very close, like sisters. Again, probably haven't read that far in advance, so completely got the wrong reading so far. But
interesting.
Okay.
All right. Whatever.
And so like some of the parts were kind of like in the show kind of seemed inaccurate, but again, I digress. I haven't read all 13 books. Been a bit busy.
Get on it, man. What else are you doing?
Yeah, just trying to stay alive. and bring home the cheddar. But let's talk about some of the fake outs in here, mate. Like, so you alluded a little bit earlier to the last episode. I want you, as somebody who hasn't read the books, to tell me, what did you think of this whole like season finale? What did you think?
The main thing.
Yeah, don't hold back.
The battle scene was so underwhelming. It's not done. I almost thought that the battle scene or the fight sequence that happens in the first episode is much better done. It seemed more epic and more dangerous and more detailed than what you saw in the finale, which is bizarre. Which usually you want the finale to feel more epic and have more meaning, right? But like you barely, all they have is, you know, the men go to the battlements, to this whatever gap that they have to hold. You see like 10 archers, they're shooting at a bunch of trollops, and the trollops break through, and then we have these 5 women that are channeling, and they just destroy all the trollops magically. Pun intended. And that's it. No, it's a huge anticlimax, and you never really see any sort of battle scenes, etc. that I'm expecting.
Yeah.
It's supposed to, I guess, again going back to Lord of the Rings, it's supposed to be the Helm's Deep of this series, I guess, right?
Yeah, no. It seems like they're trying to give it that grandeur, right?
Yeah, and it totally falls short. It doesn't seem grand at all. And you see scenes of again, it's divided down gender lines. I don't know why, but you see all the men have gone to that gap, and all the women are in the castle readying everything, positioning themselves to fight. But then you see that preparation, and then nothing comes of it, right? You never see them again. It's just the 5 women in the middle of nowhere. Again, why are they standing in the middle of nowhere? That would make no sense from like a strategic, tactical point of view.
I think they're kind of standing in between the city.
What? But why?
Back, yeah, it's weird because the city's entrance seems to be completely different, and they seem to be standing with against the back of the city walls. Which
would you want to have some sort of protection? Like say you're one of your spells screws up and it's taking 5 minutes longer than you expected. You're just gonna get destroyed. Right?
Yeah, like be on high ground. Like, did Obi-Wan teach you fucking nothing?
Right, or you have a fucking castle. Like, what's the point of a castle? It's never been breached. I'm surprised with this stupidity. I'm surprised it's never been breached.
And also, like you alluded to it, mate. Like this whole gender segregation of fucking division of labor, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you have female fighters and stuff, wouldn't you want to reinforce the fucking gap? Like,
yeah,
best fighters, and not like be like, hey, okay, what if you have more women than men, like in the city, like who are fighters? Like, come on. Division of labor, man. Compartmentalization.
Like, yeah, I guess the one thing I can think of is that they want to hold some people in reserve, I guess.
Yeah, but like, it doesn't have to do anything by gender, mate. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
I think they just snuck it in there to be like woke, which is like, Hollywood, you got to stop being too woke, man. Honestly, fucking, it just seems like you're trying to be a faux populist at times by just providing the service to in areas where it makes no sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm all for like, the sorceress is being like, it's the book is pretty woke for its time. Like, it was written in the 70s, in the 80s, and women wield the power, and they're like the ones who were needed to like take charge of the happenings of the world, and I'm fine with that. You have that, you can build upon that, but come on, mate, like, holy fuck, like, you have to gender segregate everything. You're trying to promote unity and you're trying to embolden women, but like, you're going about it the wrong way, because we never see all these badass women who are manning the city walls ever fucking fight a Trolloc. Like, this one woman takes care of them all, like, and she's not in the books.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Like, she's not even in the books, and then she's my understanding is that she wasn't good enough to make it as an Aes Sedai. She wasn't powerful enough, and now she's collected like 2 random women, right? Yeah. Who are also not Aes Sedai, and then 2 women who are not Aes Sedai and novices. They are not trained yet, and somehow they together have enough power. She leached enough power from them, one power, to be able to destroy like a whole army of trollops and those wraith-like creatures.
Eyeless, yeah.
Right, and
Fade.
Again, I don't buy that. It doesn't click for me.
I don't think that character earned that transformation, is I think what you're trying to allude to. Like, we've seen nothing about her channeling ever and then just suddenly she's at the battlefront, and the brother says a couple of encouraging words, and suddenly she's Gandalf the Grey. Like, come on, man. Like,
It would have made more sense for me to see Nynaeve doing it rather
Yeah.
than her, because we've seen Nynaeve in the show. The show has set her up to be this powerful character, and she,
mhm.
when her friends are in danger, somehow she is able to siphon incredible amounts of power.
Yeah.
So it would have made more sense for her to do it for me.
See, what would have been kind of cool, JP, is if in the midst of battle, this Agelmar's sister, Lord Agelmar's sister, I forget her name here, who's doing well, she's channeling, and then suddenly she gets too into the one power. She gets like addicted to it, and then she suddenly starts frying these women as is shown. But instead of her not letting go of the power, would have been cool to see Nynaeve take charge, kind of like deal with this woman, like, I don't know, use the one power on her to like knock her out or something, and then take charge and then kick ass. Would have been awesome to see Nynaeve and Egwene take charge and kind of like stage a little mini coup there.
So like a kind of like a move, bitch, get out of the way type of moment. Let me handle this.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because Nynaeve is shown to be that sort of like a leader-like character. She's shown to be way more powerful in this book one and in series one than she is in the books. So that could have been cool. You could have saved the two other rando cannon fodder women that were just there to get burnt up. And like, so what happens in this sequence? This Agelmar's sister gets too into the one source. She gets like turned on by it apparently, and she ends up killing the two other women, and she ends up killing Nynaeve because Nynaeve cuts off Egwene, I think, and she becomes the main force of the main focus of the like the magnification that she's feeding off of the main source of power for Agelmar's sister, and she ends up burning out, like completely flaming out. And I was kind of impressed that they killed off Nynaeve. I would find out later that they wussed out and did it for all of 30 seconds. And they basically have Egwene cry her back to perfect health with
Seriously.
no consequences. Bullshit.
I don't even know what
That's a
that
bitch
was.
move, mate. Like, no pun intended, but that's a weak move there by the showrunners.
Ugh, why even show her dying? Like, what are we getting out of that? If you're not going to kill her
Zero.
off, why? Just let her be slightly injured or something. I don't know.
Mate, she comes back in perfect health. Like, at least have the balls to show her come back as blind or something, where her eyes are burned out and she's like, she has this handicap to deal with for the rest of her living days. Like, that is character development. Come on.
Yeah, it just it was a total
It's
let
weak,
off.
mate. Bad writing, awful writing. Like,
Or
it
at
doesn't
least,
happen in the books either.
yeah, that too. Or if you're gonna do it, I guess do it as like a cliffhanger. Show us that she's alive in the next
that would have
season.
been cool too. Yeah.
I don't know. I would have still been pissed. Don't get me wrong. Like, okay, you still were too weak to kill off a main character.
But these two fake outs, mate, and both kind of involving Nynaeve, kind of again goes to show me they filmed a lot of the show without a clear perception of who's who, and that's never a good sign for any franchise. If you don't know what's up and what's down in your franchise, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Like, or if you're setting fans up for disappointment, yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like they had a couple of fake outs, one with Nynaeve bringing everybody back to life, or three actually, and then Nynaeve channeling massively in the ways to keep Machin Shin away, again showing her to be very powerful, and then this third one where she sacrifices herself to save Egwene, but then Egwene cries her back to life like right away. I'm like,
Again, if I'm not reading the books and I didn't, see that one scene where supposedly Rand is the Dragon Reborn, I'm thinking that it's Nynaeve. Like, she's the one that's shown to have to be the most powerful. Like, Rand, I don't know what the fuck he's done. He's done almost nothing.
yeah, he's had a vision, and he's had like an encounter with Ishamael, who is played by the excellent Fares, who is very recognizable. He's been in a lot of movies. He kind of goes unnoticed, but I think he's got something about him. So I was kind of happy to see him. I kind of thought for a brief second that he was maybe cast as the Dark One, but he wasn't. It was Ishamael, and that was a good, another great casting choice.
Yeah, and to me that means nothing because they don't really explain. I don't think they go. Maybe I
Yeah, they
missed this, but they don't
talked
really
about it,
explain.
yeah.
Okay, the Dark One has a bunch of lackeys.
Yeah, they
and
don't talk about that too much. Yeah,
he just
you're
like
right.
randomly shows up, and it's a total who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, they don't talk about they mention black friends. Fuck. They mention dark friends. The Dark One's servants, they have a little innkeeper encounter during the show, and it's kind of, I think that was kind of a good inclusion to show us like how many people get influenced and seduced by the Dark One's power, and so they could be anybody anywhere, but they don't do anything with it going forward. They kind of just talk about it. Oh, they have dark friends here, so you're like, okay, what does that even mean? Because there comes a point in the show, in the final episode later on, where they hastily throw the Horn of Valir into the mix to set up season 2, and it's this important artifact, has a big game to play, a big part to play in the games that follow in season 2, and they kind of show Padan Fane fucking breaking into the fortress during battle, and it, I guess it's kind of okay for somebody that's read the books to say, okay, maybe I can let that slide. But like, you might have not read the books, you thought that was kind of very, very badly explained. Like, it makes no
Right.
sense that, yeah.
So like my first question is, how does he know the password? Like he
Yeah.
just randomly knows the password to get in and get to that case that he's looking for, chest. That's not explained. Doesn't make much sense. And then the significance of that the chest does, or horn, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Again, like it's not explained at all.
Absolutely, yeah.
And maybe it's just like, okay, watch season 2 and you'll find out. Type of situation.
Yeah. I think that's what they're going for. It's
right.
a hook.
The other thing that kind of threw me off is, okay, you've got this horn, whatever, that's you have to dig up. Why are your most important lieutenants the ones doing that? Can't you just get like some randos to come around and do that for you?
Well,
like, why do you
I
need your
guess-
lieutenants to be doing it?
I guess because of the importance of the Horn of Valir. So you could argue that they want their best people protecting it. They
obviously didn't do a good job of that.
Oh yeah, they get taken out like bitches, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, lads. Because like in the books, Padan Fane is kind of shown to be this golem-like character that attaches itself to the ruby-hilted dagger that the exorcised Matt from. That's another thing they get wrong here. Like, Matt's separation from the dagger takes a long time, and I know you can't show time to, long time, like events that happen over a long time in a show for the interest of, keeping the show snappy and time relevant. But they never allude once that Padan Fane has anything to do with the dagger. In the books, it's heavily implied that he kind of becomes this golem-like character again, massive Lord of the Rings influence, and he follows them, sort of having a split personality through the ways, and they don't see him, but they kind of sense him. He is kind of shown in the ways, but they're not aware that he's there.
Yeah, he has no scenes where he has dialogue, so there's no way to know what his intentions are.
Yeah,
it's just
the first episode.
Yeah, where he's acting, right? He's
right on.
He's playing whatever, some sort of merchant, peddler, and you just don't know his intention. He has some sort of dark intentions, but you don't know what it is. And supposedly, I would have no idea that he was after the dagger until you told me about it. And even when I see him with that dagger at the end, again, maybe I'm like, oh, did he kill Matt? Did he? Oh no, Matt had already lost the dagger at that point.
Yeah.
First of all, like, how did he get the dagger is the question for me, and why is he after it? Or like, there's no explanation that he really wants it, that he's after the dagger, right?
Yeah, like I can't remember why he wanted the dagger. Or something evil.
Well, I guess the dagger, it has that force that makes you want it.
People,
right?
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the One Ring feature where it's like
you're drawn to it.
Yeah, it forces you to do things. So that's another thing that didn't makes sense for me is like in the books, Padan Fane is shown as he gets himself captured in a mad ploy to then let the Fades into the castle during the attack, because the whole attack, I think, is set up as a diversion because the Dark One knows that Rand and his friends are coming to confront him at the Eye of the World. And what ends up happening is they create a diversion to get a couple of Fades or a company of Fades or something like that into the castle walls to steal the Horn of Valir, which is this important artifact that helps turn the tide of the battle again, the final battle, Tarmon Gaiden and stuff. So they don't do a very good job in explaining the stakes. So it feels very like meh.
Yeah, total letdown. Yeah, I don't think they did a good job on that last episode for sure.
A lot of stuff up in the air, which works if it's a well-directed series, but I kind of felt like it's very rushed or very hastily edited together. It doesn't make sense. It has its parts. It has its good points, mate. Like they do a really good job of costume design, and some of the locations are really, well thought out for the series, and really like does a good job of paying homage to the books. But the big pieces are still missing. I feel like they could have done a better job.
To me, Game of Thrones and I don't know, season 8 was a letdown, but Game of Thrones overall, and then now The Witcher, they've set the bar so high.
They're doing a good job, The Witcher. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. They've set the bar high. This does not match up to it, and they'd have to improve significantly in season 2 for me to like continue watching this. To be honest,
I think they'll do a good job. Just because there's just such a big fan base for Wheel of Time that kind of doesn't get what it deserves. So I feel like they'll give it another chance, and they seem to somehow have good actors associated with the franchise. So hopefully they'll get a few more, and they'll be able to tie up things together. But one of the things that I also kind of forgot to mention that I kind of liked about this franchise is the depiction of the White Cloaks. So they're like this religious Inquisition group that they're shown briefly in a few episodes, and they have this leader. I forget, Child Vanda or something. Can't remember his name from the books, because he's just, I don't think he's like directly referred to in the books. It's just like somebody else, unless I'm completely spazzing out here on book 1. But yeah, I kind of like that character, kind of very reminiscent of Gus from Breaking Bad, Giancarlo Esposito's character.
Mm-hmm.
This like uber cruel, like torture character. I kind of love that. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, he did a decent job. Yeah.
And they kind of didn't kill him off. They kind of alluded that he was, getting his comeuppance, but they don't go all in, which is, again, that's fine. You set him up as a stronger villain for season 2, and I thought they did a good job of that. So I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it was a good side strand that developed in the series in the season,
because they his whole angle is with Perrin and the wolves, and there's another important character that's missing from that whole angle is bloody hell, yeah, the name's eluding me right now, but Elias is the name. So he's the kind of Perrin's new fairy godmother, if you will. He's the one that's guiding him in his connection to the wolves, because Elias is connected to the wolves and stuff. So they kind of didn't show that character. But I'm okay. You can omit characters like Tom Bombadil was omitted completely from the Lord of the Rings, and he had a massive role in that franchise. So
yeah, they do that all the time. Like Game of Thrones, there's so many characters.
They omitted a lot of characters.
They're omitted. Yeah. It's just too expansive. Like the books are so grand that there's no way to fit all of those wonderful characters into the TV show.
No, I'm cool with that, mate. Like you can take liberties and omit certain instances and characters that are like redundant or just there to fill up time a little bit. I got to ask you, Doc, we talked about this a lot in The Witcher and the special effects. What did you think of the Loyal character design? Like, was it distracting for you? Because I felt like it looked really cheap and like under budget. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, again, I don't have the reference of the books, so it's kind of hard to say. I think it was okay, but I think, yeah, from my perspective, it was okay, not the greatest. But I think you thought it was pretty bad, right?
yeah, like the facial prosthetic just didn't fit. I like the actor who portrayed Loyal. Like he's got that deep rumbling voice that the ogres are supposed to have, but like the the skin texture and the prosthesis just didn't fit. Like having watched The Witcher season 2 and Nivellen's excellent animation and prosthetics, like it was a you could tell the difference in budget right off the bat. I think
Oh
more
yeah,
than anything, this kind of showed it to me. This
definitely.
is really
Novellin was next level. That was really well done.
oh, it's really well done, yeah. But Loyal is kind of similar, right? He's got this like
Mhm.
human-esque features, but like yeah, didn't fit, mate. Like I think they can do better. So yeah. So you're expecting big things from season 2, mate, are you?
Well, let's see. I'm not expecting anything given what they've shown me. So, like,
You're just
like we can only go off what they've shown so far, and if it continues like this, then it's going to be a total letdown, and I probably won't continue watching
but
because it
it's a
does take
big
up a lot of time to
commitment.
watch. It's a big commitment to watch
Yeah.
these shows, right? If you got to really bring the quality, which they've totally let it down. Like it's been a total letdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give them the benefit of the. I'll give them a week pass on this and say, okay, it's watchable. If you enjoy fantasy, sword and magic stuff, give it a watch. I would obviously, much rather recommend the books, but if you're in a press for time, check it out. It's a decent watch. I've seen worse, to be honest. You've obviously, you're a huge fantasy, medieval, and like Dark Ages, you know, fan. You've watched some great shows over the years, and so you obviously coming at it from a much stronger standpoint than me. I've only really done like Game of Thrones and like Lord of the Rings and stuff, but like at least I've read and watched Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit I've read. I haven't read any of um, the other books that apparently made it into another trilogy of prequels. Not interested. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Wheel of Time. Sorry, I think I'll give them a second chance when they come back. I'm expecting them to get bigger following because there are fans of the series. So I'm hoping for better things, mate. When they come
Yeah,
back.
I hope they improve, but I'm not
Take
gonna
your
hold my
time,
breath.
lads. Take your
Yeah,
time, please.
yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath, and yeah, let's see. Well, I'll definitely watch the first episode or two and see
Yeah.
how things go.
And
If I
you'll
see
like-
good improvement, then we'll keep going. Otherwise, you guys are on your own.
Yeah, we'll hopefully get to talk about season 2 if and when it comes out. And yeah, it's been decent. It's been it hasn't been to the level of Witcher 2 or Witcher 1 for that matter. But I think on that, we pretty much exhausted all the conversation we can have about this show, mate. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm done here. Like
You're
we can only
satisfied?
go so far here. No, it was fun though. It was fun talking about it with you, AB.
Yeah, mate. I
yeah.
think our fantasy bent continues, so we'll try and see if we can find any good recent examples of fantasy slash like historical shows to review or movies for that matter. If you guys aren't following us on Twitter or YouTube, check us out. Leave us comments about what you've read, what we've talked about, tell us something new, or if you have suggestions for us to continue delving into new movies and shows, let us know. You're more than welcome at Twitter. And on Twitter, we're on at the Diffcast, and we have a YouTube channel under the name The Differential Podcast. So look for us. The links will be in the episode. So that's it from me, Mr. AB, and from the doc, JP. and we hope to catch you guys soon for more chats along the way in 22. So again, wish you guys a great beginning of 22. Let's all hope we have a much easier time this year and beyond. And we'll catch you soon.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.